Welcome to another episode of the Relax Just Love podcast, vegan edition. I got the pleasure to be sitting with Jessica Scott Reid. She is a journalist for animals, not an animal journalist.
That's right.
She's a podcaster and a vegan cook. How are you doing on this beautiful evening, Jessica?
Doing lovely, doing lovely. It's the end of a long weekend here in Winnipeg, so it's feeling very relaxed, which seems appropriate for this podcast.
Oh, that's true. You guys had a day off today.
Yes, yes. So I'm fitting you in on a non-work day.
Oh, are we ever so lucky? So, how hard is it to write columns dressed as an animal? Is it very? Is it?
The keyboard is tough. The paws on the keyboard make it very difficult. Depends which animal I am doing that day.
Yeah, because when I read that, that's exactly what I imagined. An animal journalist, and typing on my that's exactly what I thought.
Paws, yeah.
So, what do you do exactly? What does that entail?
Yeah, so I'm a journalist. I write for I'm a freelancer, first of all, so I don't write for anyone. I write for the animals. But I do my work frequently appears in the Globe and Mail and Toronto Star, Winnipeg Free Press here in Canada. I also work for Sentient Media in the US, and some other publications trying to get into, vegan topics, into say like Wine Enthusiast magazine and other cultural things that aren't necessarily vegan oriented, but I'm going to try and get it in there. So yeah, I'm writing about animals full time, which is a dream come true.
This is what you do 100% of your time. Well, not
Yeah,
100%,
yeah.
but that's what pays the bills.
Yeah, that's my whole career. I set out. I've been doing this about 5 years. I set out just before that. I was a writer, doing
Yeah.
all kinds of lifestyle stuff. And I said, I really just want to write about animals and the planet and food. And at that time, I was becoming closer to becoming vegan too. And yeah, who would have thought that I actually could? And I think I'm pretty much the only journalist in Canada that writes exclusively about these topics.
Yeah, because I was going to say I can see the curve going there. I can see that there's more and more people getting involved, but even for I run quite a few podcasts, like I have about 4 different types, and I done research on vegan podcasts. There's not a lot of them. Like it's absolutely small. I'm very surprised that it's not more popular.
Yeah, I think the audience just has to grow a bit more. The one that I do, it's called Paws and Order. It's an
Yeah.
animal law podcast. I didn't name it. I came in late, so it's produced by Animal Justice, which is Canada's animal law advocates. And
Yeah.
so they've been doing it for a few years, and then they had me come on. And every time I forget how funny that sounds, because every time I tell people, oh yeah, my podcast Paws and Order, and people go, what? Paws and Order? Like I was like, oh yeah, we have to laugh about that for a second because it's funny.
Again, I imagine you typing your article with your pause
Paws.
in order.
Yeah.
That's fine. Pause in order. It's a
Yeah.
good idea though. I do like the name. It's pretty catchy.
Very clever. Yeah.
So what do you guys speak about on pause in order? Obviously animals, but
Yeah, so it's mainly animal law focused because animal justice is, that's their main thing. They're lawyers. So my co-host Camille Labchuk, she's the executive director. She's an animal rights lawyer, and then our other co-host Peter, he's at the University of Alberta. He's also a lawyer, and then I come in more with the cultural stuff. As a journalist, we talk a lot about animal stories making headlines in Canada and around the world, and sort of discuss animal issues in the media. So it's a good mix of law and culture.
so what's the goal? What do you want to accomplish with that podcast?
I think it's an education. A lot of people aren't always up on all of these issues. Not everybody can read every single headline about, animals in, Australia and Canada and Asia. And we kind of put it all together. And then we have a lot of really good dialogue about it. So they provide, legal perspectives about it and talk about how things are going in court, how policy is being formed. And then I discuss it more from a cultural perspective. And I think it just allows people to keep up on the progress that's being made, really a lot of progress that's being made for animals, the plant-based food movement, environmentalism, just to keep everybody informed.
So as a animal advocate lawyer, what do they do on a day-to-day basis? Like what's their actual job?
Yeah, animal justice has their feet in a lot of places. Like currently, we're suing the Ontario government over egg gag legislation. Animal justice, as well as me as a journalist, as well as an activist, we're taking the Ontario government to court over their new what's called egg gag laws that are preventing activists from interacting with animals on transport trucks, from being able to enter slaughterhouses and farms under what they're calling false pretenses, meaning undercover investigators. So a lot of things that have, uh, furthered the animal rights movement and been able to really show the public things that have been going on behind closed doors for so long. The Ontario government's now made it all very illegal with very large fines. And so something animal justice does, along with me, is sue.
So what do you so what would be your, what would make you successful? Like what do you think when you're going against the Ontario government? Because basically from what I gather, I know exactly what you're talking about. So from what I gather, they're just trying to avoid how the animals are treated to be shown.
Yes, I
They're trying to find
yeah.
excuses for the general public to see what's really going on there.
Yeah, like
Right? Is that
it
right?
all came about because activists started entering farms, because the Save movement that focuses on transport trucks, they, were gaining more and more members, and their footage was spreading further. Joaquin Phoenix joined after the Oscars, and that created a lot of buzz. And so, yeah, the industry was being exposed more and more all the time, and that's bad for business. The industry itself and the Ontario government will say that it's for like biosecurity reasons,
Yeah,
and to keep the animals safe. They actually call
of
it like an
course.
animal protection zone, which is very ironic. But yeah, it's really just to be able to keep this industry hidden as it was for so long, and to stop those of us who've been trying to expose it. So for my part in the lawsuit, it's that it's an infringement on my freedom of expression, and freedom of expression includes freedom of the press. And so I wrote a column for the Toronto Star that said, like, this is my 24th column for the Star, and a big majority of the columns I've written in the past have been thanks to activists that have, informed me or informed the public of things that they've seen and experienced, and that none of these columns would have been able to be written had it not been for those people on the ground. And so now my job is hindered because of this law.
So if I get you properly, you want, so what would you feel comfortable with having badges issued to people so they can visit it with a camera and
Well,
actually show how, what's the main purpose of the lawsuit?
yeah, to have the law turned over, to stop making it such a massive fine for people to go in undercover. Because I mean, if you think about it, for example, also in Alberta, so they were the first province that enacted these egg gag laws, and theirs is even more far-reaching. They say that you can't enter any kind of public business under what they say false pretenses. So you can't have anybody, even if it's, say, like a long-term care home or a child care center or a warehouse or a slaughterhouse or a meatpacking facility, nobody can go undercover anymore into any of these places without it being a massive fine and potentially jail time. So this is like a fundamental action of journalism for a very long time, right? Undercover work, and in particular regarding animals, it's the only way the public ever knows, right? These things are not open to the public. So how else are consumers supposed to know? All we're shown by the industry is commercials and advertising, which are bullshit. So activists go in and they expose the truth. And to me, that doesn't seem illegal, shouldn't be illegal.
Well, it's interesting that it doesn't stop at the animals' right either. That, as you said, it's even in the health system.
Just in
It
Alberta,
seems
of course, just Alberta.
okay, okay,
Yeah.
but it's kind of interesting that it's almost like the government's hiding what they're doing, because we all know, well, hopefully we all know that a lot, like the egg industry, the milk industry, the meat industry as a whole is extremely, extremely, extremely financed by the government
Yep.
here in Canada. They have a lot of money poured into that so that
Right.
it's
They're
easily
protecting their
accessible for.
investment.
Yeah, it's interesting that there's so much money that's being poured in from the government, but yet when it comes to vegan food that does not contain any animal byproducts, there's nothing. And we won't lie, like I haven't ate meat in almost 12 years now. And I remember 12 years ago, it was not easy to get even a vegetarian meal. You did not get a vegan meal. It was
Right.
vegetarian,
Yes. Yeah.
and it was complicated. Nowadays, are you kidding me?
So easy.
It's everywhere.
It's so easy.
Everywhere you can get food.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why the government doesn't subsidize that portion, because vegan food is not cheap. We won't lie to each other. It's not.
Depends how you do it. Yeah, Beyond Burgers aren't cheap, but I mean, like a can of kidney beans is pretty cheap.
Yeah, but I don't think you should eat vegan. You should eat Beyond Meat that often either.
No, I try not to. I cut back because it's hard. I love it so much.
Let's just say that nowadays you can easily eat a lot of junk food as a vegan.
It's so easy now. But I agree with you on the subsidizing. So another group I work with a lot, you probably know of, called Nation Rising. So they're an activist group, a lobby group in Canada that's specifically focused on lobbying the government to reroute funds being sent to animal agriculture instead to plant-based food production. And so I worked with them doing some writing, and there was a lot of things that were happening a couple of years ago where the governments, provincial governments and federal government were funding different plant-based protein production things. Here in Manitoba, we have this big plant protein production, Alberta, and sort of slyly, a lot of these fundings are ending or they're being clawed back that the public doesn't really know about. And that's really scary, especially at a time like this when, food security and climate change are so on top of mind. And yet we're still putting billions of dollars into animal agriculture. And here's $1 million. Here's $1 million for peas. Are you kidding?
It's the same principle as gas, the way it's still used right now. Like a car that runs on water was invented about 50 years ago. And it's an engineer that did it at home. It was not something that you needed to be created in a massive factory. The guy did it at home. But to this day, we don't see it because there's too much money to be made with gasoline. And it's the same thing. Like when I've always been careful about my diet. So me reading ingredients on the back of something that I buy, I've been doing for more than 10 years, right? And to this day, I look at some products and there's milk in it. And I'm like,
I know.
Why the hell is there milk in this product? It makes no sense to me.
Like Breton crackers.
Sense.
Like, come on, Breton crackers. Yeah. Shit together. Like, why? It's not even like a cheese cracker. It's a wheat and veggie cracker. Like, get the milk powder out of there. But why is it in there? You got to ask.
Because it's highly subsidized and it's so cheap.
And it adds some nutrition. They can put some, of course, because the milk is fortified. Yeah. You could just add the calcium and the vitamins without the milk.
Yeah, but that's exactly it. It's just because that it's so heavily subsidized that because let's not lie to each other. Companies, big corporations don't give a damn about the products, the ingredients in their products. They don't. At the end of the day, it's an Excel spreadsheet and there's a bottom line that says, this is how much profit we made. To them, if the government, let's say, would subsidize oat milk as much as they do regular milk, or even a bit more, I guarantee you that they would make that switch because they would save money at the end of the day.
Yes. And that's
because they don't care. They really don't care.
But to get that switch over, that cultural switch over, it's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard.
Well, the way to do it, and there's one of my buddies from Israel, and he was explaining to me something one day, how what the Jewish community often do is that they all go together. So let's say they have 100 businesses in a certain city, they will organize all together, and they will see, okay, so there's 50 of us that needs this type of product, this type of product, this type of product, and they will all buy together. They won't buy individually, so that they can put pressure on the people they buy from to get it cheaper. and it's just
That's,
called
that's kind
purchasing.
of like vegans. That's kind of like vegans. I mean,
But that's my point. It's called purchasing power. The
mhm.
principle is super simple.
Yeah.
Just vote with your money.
Yeah.
I will pay more for a product that's vegan
Yeah.
than a product that is not. No matter what, I do that for any single product. If there's a product to me that uses less plastic, that seems to be better the way they treat, the way they build it, I will just buy the more expensive one.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to do as vegan, let's say, is boycott companies that don't produce, like the crackers you're talking about. They only have, there's no reasons for them to have
No.
that milk in there. So
No.
stop buying it and make it vocal to say, we're not buying it for one single reason. It's
Yep.
because there's milk in it.
I'll tweet them. I'm going to tweet them.
but it's that simple. Just
Yeah.
purchasing power. It's really just where.
Yeah.
Where do you
I
spend
mean,
your
I
money?
saw craft dinner in Australia. They have a vegan, gluten-free craft dinner now in Australia.
Motherfucker.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Fuck, really?
Yeah, I saw the video, a friend or somebody I follow on Instagram, and they were going into a store and they're like, you know, with the camera, and there it was. And I said exactly what you just said. And then I realized it was from Australia. And then I said the same thing again, but like more mad.
Because technically it's not even cheese.
I know. It's like,
There's
it's like
no cheese in craft dinner.
You're so close to just being vegan anyways. Can you just make it plastic? I'll eat it if it's plastic. Make it the plastic yellow cheese and I'll eat that with, just take that little bit of freaking dairy out of there.
You know, I think there's a stigma with non-vegans and vegan food, because often I've noticed that a lot of products that I buy are vegan just because I read the ingredients.
Yeah,
Not because it's advertised. There's nothing written on it.
There's whole Instagram accounts called accidentally vegan or hashtags you can follow. That is all kinds of products.
I like it.
It's like, you know, Oreo cookies or like a lot of Pillsbury products. And really what it comes down to is that they're just cheap. They didn't want to use real butter or real cream. They wanted to use vegetable oil. And so they're just cheap. And then we're like, thank you.
But it's funny because I think there's a stigma to it too. I wouldn't be surprised if vegan products are not as popular as they could be because they're so overly publicized to be vegan.
I think that's why a lot of things are using plant-based now, because they find market research has shown that plant-based as a term is more inclusive or makes people feel like it's more inclusive. So if you could call something vegan, but also there's some bullshit too with calling things vegan that aren't cruelty-free. You know, like there's a lot of beauty products and makeup products out there that now that call themselves vegan because they don't contain any animal products, but they're still tested on animals. And I've tweeted like Clairol and these companies and being like, you can't call your hair dye vegan if it's tested on animals. You can call it plant-based, but like that's not what vegan means. Vegan also means cruelty-free. People don't get that.
You can put whatever you want on those labels. It's just a market. It's just a marketing term.
There's no law about it. Same with humane meat. I'm working on a piece right now for Vox about humane washing in the US, about the amount of certified humane or the like labels that are on meat products in the US and how they actually are just created by the industry and mean absolutely nothing.
Oh, it's a marketing term.
Yeah. It's not legally defined. It's not even scientifically defined.
What was the documentary? I think it's Seaspiracy or Seaconspiracy, something like that they talk about. I can't remember the name of the company, but they put their seal on everything and they don't even know. They don't even care. Just pay a membership and we'll believe you. We won't even check.
There's no auditing. And if it is auditing, it's auditing by the industry itself.
Yeah, exactly. I will say myself about my company that we do it right.
Yes.
Just take my word on it. Trust me.
Yeah. Or like slaughterhouses in Canada that have to self-report their mistakes.
Oh, that makes sense.
Oh, I made no mistakes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, we believe you. Good job, buddy. Good job.
Industry is working.
How did you get involved in this? Because by what you were speaking earlier, it's been about 5 years.
Yeah. I was
vegan. So how did you?
I was
what
writing.
was the ting moment?
It all came together at the same time. I was living overseas, writing more cultural stuff, writing about food, a lot about food. And as I was writing more about food, I started writing for Vice and doing more about food ethics, like writing about, you know, organic food and humane meat and all that kind of stuff. And as I was researching that, trying to make it make sense for me. And I remember at one point going to such lengths to buy meat from happy animals, like driving far distances out to farms and like stocking my freezer with things that felt ethical to me, and just going like doing make so much effort. And at the end of the day, realizing like none of this is really a thing. Like this is none of it is really any better. They all go to the same place in the end. I can't find a way, even while I'm living and eating or writing, to make any of this actually make sense. And then I had my daughter almost 5 years ago, and it was upon having to feed her food as soon as she was, 6 months old, ready to eat solid food. I was already writing about animal issues, but more like circuses and whales, for making my way towards the farmed animals, but sort of trying to avoid it, and it couldn't be avoided anymore. And once I had to feed her food, I thought, I cannot put a dead animal in front of her. She's trusting me, and she doesn't know, and it's up to me. And that was when I really had to get my own values in check, and that was the moment. And I did a Veganuary
Yes.
5 years ago, 4.5 years ago. And yeah, and then it all came together, and then that's what I started writing about exclusively, started writing more from an animal rights perspective. And at that time the world was changing too, so the timing just worked out so well with veganism kind of starting to take off, and my perspective suddenly being welcomed in publications that no one probably would have ever expected that the Globe and Mail would let an animal rights perspective ever be published.
Yeah,
And
that's
here we are.
interesting because the Globe and Mail is, let's say, it's more center than left than right. It's basically somewhere in the middle. Oh, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
I think it's becoming a little bit more liberal, or at least the stuff I do there, they let me do quite a few things I'm often sort of surprised about. The Toronto Star is even better. They let me pretty much say whatever I want. It's amazing. I mean, but I do know what I'm doing. Like my motto is always clever, not crazy.
Yeah.
Like everyone always expects me as a vegan or an animal rights activist, or even those things as a journalist, to sound crazy, use emotional language, and be like an activist on paper. And I'm not, because the facts speak for themselves. I don't have to be crazy. I don't have to use emotional language. I can literally just highlight what's actually happening that people just don't know is happening, and that will be horrible enough. Just let it speak for itself. And that's what I do.
But that's a beautiful thing, because that I'm someone that's been interested by politics for a very long time, and I find nowadays in journalism, especially, that there's not a lot of facts anymore. It's mostly opinion based. Like you can read pretty much anything, and you can always feel the opinion of the writer, instead of, as you said, simply presenting facts and letting the reader get to their own conclusions.
Yeah.
Because if you're on a subject where the facts speak for themselves, you don't need to say anything about your opinion. Simply presented, and if you have somebody that's paying attention, they will realize for themselves. Because it is true, and I'll be honest, I'm one of those too, where I don't want to say that I'm careful about calling myself a vegan, but there is a stigma every single time that somebody, because I'm not outspoken to the people that I don't know. Unless you come eat with me, you'll never know that I'm vegan, because I don't really approach that subject with people. But I find that there's a lot of crazies. I don't know how else to say it. I don't mean to be rude by saying that, but
Well, I mean,
there's,
I feel like that's in every social,
yeah,
grouping of people, but I think it's expected more of us, and so they're
yeah,
easy to point out. And I
yeah,
mean, ironically enough, in my work, I am an opinion writer. I'm not a reporter. They won't let me be a reporter because my bias is so out there now. Like
yeah.
I sometimes I'll do some lifestyle work, but they wouldn't actually let me report because I'm an activist, and they know that. So I can only do opinion work unless I'm writing for an advocacy publication like Sentient Media, where it's obvious. But I think as far as journalism and bias, we're all human, right? Like we're not robots putting it out there. And if anything, in the last 4 years of craziness in the US, we've all come to really learn which publications are on what side. Like now we're describing publications as center or left or right,
Oh
or
yeah, absolutely.
and that's become more of a topic of conversation, whereas like originally there journalism, that there was none of that. It was just center, like there was no political leaning of journalism. That was kind of an oxymoron. And now it's everywhere.
I find it a shame. I think it's a shame. It's really, really a shame that every single news outlet, no matter that it's written online or video, you all know what to expect. You all know that if you watch them, they'll talk about that. If you watch the other
Yes.
one, they'll talk.
Yes.
There's no, and nobody debates. We were talking about that before the podcast. There's, I don't have a problem with that when you think about it. I don't have an issue with people taking part of their political views. I have no problem with that. What I have a problem with is the lack of debate.
Mm-hmm.
I have a problem that the left doesn't talk to the right and the center. I'm a centrist. I'm not left. I'm not right. I like some stuff on the left. I like some stuff on the right. And I tend to make my own opinion, but I never see debates anymore, not proper debates where there's no name callings, just intelligent people that are knowledgeable about whatever subject that they're talking about, sitting across from each other and just speaking to each other.
Yeah, it's kind of an old school, a debate style show. You don't really see a lot more of that anymore. I think it's such a high stress time, like everyone's walking on eggshells with everyone all the time, that like that sort of format is so tricky now. I mean, in the Toronto Star, they do have a debate section still. It's on Tuesdays. It's called The Big Debate. I've been in it a few times talking about like, should plant-based meat be able to be called meat, and should Toronto give up fur, like kind of sort of surface level stuff that the obvious yes and no arguments are going to be there. But it's interesting to have a yes column and a no column put beside each other. But I mean, it's still not like getting face to face with someone. I prefer to do that. I still do some of that, but it's mostly radio shows. I feel like old school radio shows are more into that,
especially AM. Especially
yeah.
AM radio. I'm a big fan of AM radio for that reason. Exactly. But I think maybe that's what I should do. Actually, that's a good idea. Maybe I should, because I know that Instagram Live allows you to be 4 in a room. Maybe we should do that. Maybe I should have you. I should just be a mediator.
Sure.
Have somebody on the complete opposite side, and just have a
debate show.
Intelligent respect, because I'm very strong on respect. I don't care what you believe in. I'll never call you names.
The only name I ever called anybody on a show, I was recently on I think it was an Alberta based podcast, and a popular one, and the guy had me on with a keto cookbook author.
Okay.
And I think it's like a New York Times best-selling keto cookbook author. And so he came with this big name, and, he's spouting off about why, humans need meat and everything. And, it was my turn to talk. And I said, well, I'm a journalist. I'm not a nutrition expert, but I work with a lot of nutrition experts, and I'm probably going to listen to them over a keto cookbook author. So it's not really calling a name. It's just calling it is what it is. You're a cookbook author.
Well, that's interesting, because keto is very strong on meat, obviously, because it's high protein, high fat, but very low carbs, which on a vegan diet is basically impossible.
Yeah.
You do a low carbs because you're looking at 1 gram of protein for every 3 gram of carbs, basically.
Yes, but it's very hard.
But yet I tried them all over the years. I've tried every single diet that's out there, and keto doesn't work for me. At least I know people that it does, but it doesn't for me.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of like weight loss and stuff that happens, but like to what extent and at what peril, like you hear a lot of more of like the long-term effects are kind of scary.
Well, it's not sustainable. That's
too.
the thing.
Lose weight and then what?
Oh, and then as soon as you start eating carbs again, you're gonna gain it all back.
Mm-hmm. And how's your kidneys?
What's that?
And how's your kidneys? Like after that long of eating?
It's still interesting, because the keto diet is based on producing ketones in your body, which means that you want to force your body to burn fat instead of burning carbs like it's supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And yet there's a lot of studies that shows that if you want to produce more ketone than the keto diet, do intermittent fasting.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been doing 16-8 for 4 years now.
Wow, good.
I eat about 8 hours a day. I'll scram 3,000-4,000 calories in 2 meals, but I'm a pig.
Wow.
Yeah, my plates are ridiculous, but
lucky you. I mean, I probably could do that, but I shouldn't.
Well, if the thing is you are allowing your body a big rest, right? For
Hmm.
16 hours, your body is not digesting anything because all I eat is
What's your time? Where's your 16 hours?
normally I finish eating around 8 o'clock at night. So 12 to 8. I eat between noon and 8.
Oh, and so then you wake up and you don't eat again until noon.
Yeah, exactly. And
Oh.
normally what I've come to realize too is working out around 12.
Mm.
So by the time my body's completely depleted of carbs, I work out so that I burn the fat that's there. Oh,
You're
it's
so hungry, but it's like
oh,
I eat a big breakfast and then I work out and then I come eat another breakfast.
yeah. Well, I'm always starving, but it's a mental thing.
Well, that's why
It
you're fit and I'm not.
well, I think it's one of my buddies does 3 days fast about once a month. Once a month, one every 2 months, he'll go on a 3 day fast. All he drinks is tisane, what is it, herbal tea.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
it.
I
Herbal
couldn't.
tea and water for 3 days.
Holy moly. Have you ever tried that?
Yeah, yeah. I've done I think 48 hours, but it's not if your goal is to keep your muscle mass and to be able to work out, because I guarantee you during those 3 days he's not working out.
No, you couldn't. You'd pass
He's
out.
complete. He's depleted. He's completely depleted. It's a mental exercise at that point.
Mm, interesting.
Yeah. Well, it would be for a good debate though. Going back to what I was saying, it's
Yeah, that I couldn't do because I don't know anything about it, but I'd love to listen. I'd love to learn more. I hear a lot of people talking about it. I just never tried it.
I think there's that's a good point. Maybe I should do that more because I know a lot of fitness experts and I know a lot about it myself, but that's not what I do for a job. It's what I put in my body. So I guess it makes sense for me to understand what I'm eating.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, maybe that's a good idea because I think that's another big problem with the vegan diet. A lot of people are under the impression that it's not enough
Yeah,
to
that
have a
is a stigma that people are always hungry and that you're never full. And I'm like, I eat more now than I ever did.
it's very interesting the way the I don't know how you change that stigma.
You
I'm
just
not
it's
sure
just
what's the best
education,
approach.
and I think it's just more people, going to a vegan restaurant and trying a vegan meal. Like between Montreal and Toronto, like there's so many incredible vegan restaurants. We're doing okay here in Winnipeg, but like Love in Montreal, like holy shit, is
Yeah,
that a good restaurant?
crazy.
And Atlanta in Toronto, like Doomie's, like there's such good food that if you brought someone who'd never tried vegan food before and just sat them down and gave them food, like they're not gonna leave hungry, never.
No, no. I got one of my buddies since he's not vegan and just watching me eat, he now buys Satan every single time, every week. He always has Satan in it. So he's replaced half of his meat consumption just because I was eating it. And he's like, what's that?
Yes, yes,
And I
yes.
gave him some and he's like, holy shit, this is
It's just
good stuff.
introducing people. Yeah, like none of my closest friends are vegan, but they've all definitely in the last couple of years incorporated much more vegan food into their diet. No one's drinking cow milk anymore.
Mhm.
People are ordering, the Beyond Burger from A&W instead of a regular burger. Like just these little things. And even if they're not going to go full vegan, I think every bit of it counts for their health and for the health of obviously the animals aren't being killed and for the planet. And I see a progression with it. And I think if it just becomes more normalized and more available, it's everywhere. Why wouldn't you get the vegan Whopper? Why not?
I think that's this is one of the I don't want to say one of the issues, but I think one of the drawbacks of a lot of activists is the way they approach the subject. Like I've in Montreal last year or the year before, there was a bunch of people that went in a restaurant and starting screaming at people for eating meat.
Yeah,
And
steakhouses.
yeah, and you see kids in the corner crying because they don't understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's the right way to go about it. I think showing that it's available everywhere, that you can still, like if I go to the gym and you compare me to another guy that weighs 200 pounds, I'm in as good a shape as him, but I guarantee you my body's hurting less because I don't have
Oh
inflammation.
yeah, your recovery for sure. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
I don't know like what this is like probably the hottest topic of debate in veganism and animal activism is what strategies work, which ones don't, which are actually making things worse, which are, you know, not enough, because a lot of those people, those abolitionists who think that it needs to be severe all the time, you know, they live in a state of panic. Like they are thinking about the animals that are being tortured as we speak all the time. So I can commiserate with them on that level. And I've written about this before. I've changed my own perspective a number of times. I've had grassroots activists, yell at people outside restaurants, convince me that there's some good to it. And I honestly don't know. And that's, if ever I'm asked, and I'm asked a lot, what works and what doesn't, or what my opinion is, I honestly don't know. And what I really hope is that there's going to be far more academic study. I want actual qualitative, quantitative study about what things actually work, and what on a social psychological level, what are things that are actually convincing people to think new. Is being yelled at a steakhouse working for people? I don't know. And I want researchers to tell me what's actually working. And I hope that these things become of interest to academia.
Because personally, if you scream at me about something, chances are I'm not going to listen to what you have to say until you calm down.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, and that's me, and I'm quite a patient person. For the average person, you're screaming at them. Not sure that's the best way to go in order to sell your idea, right?
I think that those pressure campaigns work better at a corporate level. Like if you think about like what's been done in the fur industry, like with Canada Goose and I think Rudsack now did they finally fold?
I don't know.
And all of these, I'm not sure if they did or not, but like these pressure campaigns where they're outside the stores, maybe the people are being, annoyed, but we've seen them work. We've seen those pressure campaigns where they're affecting business, and that, they're stopping people from going inside the store by talking to them. When they're putting on those megaphones, the sounds of a coyote being skinned, and they're blasting it through the mall, people are going to think twice about walking into that store. And I think that sometimes that can work. We've seen it work, but that's more at a corporate level. If you're, maybe the steakhouse isn't the right place, but maybe fashion outlet is.
Well, I think that personally, I believe that it would be easier to simply give people the choice, because look at a winter coat. I would have never bought Canada Goose. They're overpriced. They're not even nice looking, in my opinion. Forget the fact that they have fur and they're down inside. But
yeah,
I have a North Face that's way better than a Canada Goose. And I chose the model that does not have down in it. That's synthetic. But it's there already. I think the products are already there.
Yeah, but the problem is there's not enough people choosing them, because we have to make fur and down not cool. And there's still too many people that think it's cool. Like I have a Wuxley coat. I fucking love that brand, Wuxley. Like they are amazing. The products they make are incredible. The people who own it are incredible. I love like a fully vegan company, but that's a very specialized product that a lot of people probably aren't even aware of,
I don't know them.
Yeah, so they're a Toronto-based company, and they are totally vegan outerwear. They're probably the top vegan outerwear company in Canada, and that's the thing. It's a very specialized thing. We just need to make it more of a culturally broad, normalized thing. We have to make walking around wearing a coyote-trimmed hood whack, for lack of a better term. We have to make it uncool. We have to make it actually taboo. We have to make it you feel shamed and stupid for doing it.
You think that the taboo portion, because psychologically wise, the more taboo you have in a society, the more people will actually do those taboos. It's human nature to want to do what's not allowed.
I don't know if that works for fashion. I guess it does work for fashion in that way, but like I think about wearing ostrich, for example.
Yeah.
Aside from the price, I think a lot of people would feel very, very strange about doing that. But as you're saying, it does turn it into a more sort of exclusive, higher end thing. But you know what? We can work with that. Let fur become a more exclusive, higher end thing that only the very rich people can afford. We need the 99% of the rest of the people to not wear it. You know what I mean? If 1% are wearing the ostrich and the fur, we can work with that for now. But make fur uncool for the masses.
I think I don't know for you, but one of the problems that I have, like I wear a dress, like I wear a suit when I work, and finding good looking dress shoes is extremely hard.
Yes,
That is very hard.
And that are comfortable too. I know a few
Yeah.
vegan guys who they're always looking for secondhand, and they'll still wear leather, but secondhand leather just because of how it feels on the foot. I don't have a problem with secondhand leather as much. I think I have a pair of secondhand leather shoes myself. And I know that that's a tough thing because a lot of these synthetic leather shoes can be really uncomfortable.
And they don't last. The quality of them is normally not that great either, because I haven't bought shoes in years, but I have unfortunately a few pairs of leather shoes that I've had forever that I wear.
But I think that's okay. I mean, to get, like, people always talk about when they go vegan and what do I do with all my leather stuff.
Yeah.
Like I sold some, designer leather things I had because the money was good. I've kept a few leather things, and I think to get rid of leather makes no sense. And especially if you're, vegan in part for the animal or for the planet,
Yeah.
I think wearing secondhand is more important than wearing anything vegan. Using what you have, not purchasing anything new, period. And then if you are purchasing, like I haven't bought anything new really in 2 years at least. Yeah. Thrift stores all the way if I can, unless there's a vegan company that I want to support.
Yeah, but that makes sense. Again, like I was saying earlier, that's your purchasing power. Put your money where you want to encourage people, and that's worth it. Talk with your money.
Yeah, there was an outerwear company here in Winnipeg. I just wrote about them for the Globe and Mail, about a story about fur going out of fashion. And it's a family-owned 4th generation outerwear company that used to use a lot of fur and leather and down in all of their outerwear. And the new president, the first female in the line of presidents of the company, she has now changed it all to vegan, or at least to animal free. And so they made this incredible line of luxurious faux fur coats that are so heavy and so warm and so obviously faux, they're not looking like real fur. And I bought myself one for Christmas because I was like, I want to support your company and I want to be warm because I'm in Winnipeg. And, like you say, that's a purchasing power thing. It helped them and it helped me.
Why go for the fur? Because that's one thing I've never been attracted to fur on my coats for some reason or another.
Yeah, what? I haven't ever either. This is usually I just don't have any of it. But I just moved back to Winnipeg. I'd been gone for a long time. And I just moved back and I was like, oh God, like this is colder than I remember. And now, and I kind of wanted to see for myself, could a faux fur coat actually live up? And it does. Yeah, the company's called Freed. FREED. If you look it up, they make incredible faux fur, everything, faux fleece. It's lovely warm if you're in a place like Winnipeg.
I live I live in Quebec, so I'm used to the -35, so I know what it is.
Yes.
It's part of the deal to live in Canada.
That's right.
That's interesting, because I haven't looked at faux fur in a very long time, because to me they always look, and I apologize, I don't mean to be rude, but they look tacky. Like I don't understand the principle of trying to copy something that you don't want to buy in the first place.
I've show
never
you.
Understood that.
You'll see how cozy it looks.
Yeah, you know what? You're probably right, because I don't know them, but Freed, I'll check them out. Mm-hmm. It's probably a good idea I don't, because I like to buy clothes, so it might not be a good idea. But we're going at 40, 45, about 45 minutes. I think we'll have to call it. I think I'm gonna have to call it, because I need to ask you a question before you go.
Okay.
I always ask the same question no matter the podcast I'm doing. If you had a chance to speak to your 14-year-old self, what would you tell her?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
Why do you think I asked it at the end?
I'm like 14. That's like, don't do it, girl. Don't do it. What would I tell her? I would tell her, you don't know everything. Chill the fuck out. and listen to your mom.
Because your mother now, right?
Yes, to a girl, and I am scared.
Listen to your mom. So you're saying that to your daughter right now at the same time.
Like 1,000 times a day.
Oh, that's great. That's funny. I don't know if you have anything to add, because I think you had a blog. You have a blog, right?
Well, follow me on Twitter. That's probably the best place. That's where I post all my work. I do blog for a publication called Planet Friendly News on a very regular basis, where I share some of my recipes. I'm working on something now about food inequities across racial lines. So we do a lot of kind of hardcore stuff and some casual stuff. So that's Planet Friendly News. That's my every other week blog. And Twitter is Jess L. Reid, R-E-I-D. And there, any of my publications for the Globe and the Star and everything else I do will all be there.
Awesome. It's I'm happy. I don't know how I found you on Instagram, but
I don't know. I think I might have probably like said something rude on a post or something. That's usually how these things work. A debate with somebody on a post.
I honestly, I've never, I don't, it wouldn't have been on one of mine because nobody's ever rude. I don't know.
I might have
It's
been rude to somebody who was being rude to you.
people are not. It's surprising on that. I have very different accounts, and on that account, I haven't had any vulgar people compared to some of
Okay,
the ones where I talk about politics.
well, then I guess you found me in a very nice, peaceful way. We just don't remember.
Well, you were, I don't know. I have no idea, but I'm very happy. I didn't know what to expect from animal journalists, but
I didn't wear the paws.
it's been a great conversation. I'm very happy that you took the time to speak with me. I really, really appreciate it.
Well, I thank you very, very much for having me anytime. And if you want to do the debates, I'm here.
Oh, as you were talking earlier, I wrote it down because that's a great idea. I never thought about that before. That makes sense.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.